I wasn't supposed to come home for Mom's birthday, but at 7:12 p.m., I was standing in the foyer with an overnight bag and a bottle of Tylenol, still wearing the blouse I'd sweat through on the train. My mother blinked when she saw me. "You didn't say you were coming." I said, "Happy birthday." Then I asked, "Is the guest room still mine?" She glanced toward the stairs. "Ashley's using it now, but you can sleep there, just for tonight." I smiled the way people do when they know the answer already. "Thanks." Upstairs, the door to my old room was closed. The sticker I'd once put on it, "Do Not Disturb," in crooked block letters, was gone. I turned the knob slowly, like I was sneaking into someone else's home. It smelled faintly like lavender and vanilla protein powder. The bed had been made, military tight. A diffuser pulsed next to the nightstand. There was a yoga mat rolled up in the corner, and the desk, my desk, the one I bought with my first paycheck, was now home to a laptop, a jade face roller, and a stack of content calendars. I found a spot on the floor beside the bed and set down my bag. I didn't unpack, just sat there for a minute, feeling out of place in a room that had once been mine down to the baseboards. The photos were gone. The bookshelf was gone. Even the carpet had changed. New rug, neutral tones, soft lighting. I was still sitting there when the door opened. Ashley. She leaned against the frame, her face unreadable. She was wearing one of my old college hoodies. "They said you'd only be here for one night," she said. I nodded. "That's right." Her eyes scanned the room, as if to make sure nothing had shifted since she left it. "This isn't your room anymore." A pause. "You don't deserve it." I looked at her. "Okay." She waited, like she was expecting me to challenge her. I didn't. I stood, pulled the blanket halfway down the bed, and lay on top of it without removing my shoes. She didn't say anything else, just closed the door behind her. The light from the hallway disappeared. In the dark, I let my eyes adjust to the shape of the ceiling. No more glow in the dark stars. No more crooked poster of Florence and the Machine. The wall was blank, clean, scrubbed of history. I turned onto my side. The bed was firmer than I remembered, like it had been rebuilt to hold someone else's weight. I pulled my coat over my legs and let the cold reach my back. I used to sleep here the night before, every big decision before college tours, before interviews, before I left for New York. I'd lie awake listening to the heater hum and imagine a future that felt solid. But tonight it felt like I was trespassing, like even my breath was too loud. I reached for my phone and opened my gallery. Scrolled back to a picture from 2013. Same room, different world, my desk covered in index cards, my books stacked like bricks. A note from my mom taped to the wall. "Proud of you already." I had framed that note once. Now it was probably in a landfill. I locked my phone. The room was quiet, except for the faint sound of water running somewhere downstairs. Pipes I used to know by sound. A drip meant the kitchen. A groan meant the hallway bath. I lay still, not because I was tired, but because there was nowhere to move without knocking something over. I thought about Ashley's voice, how steady it had been, like she'd rehearsed it. "You don't deserve it." I wondered what she thought I'd done to lose it. To lose a room, a wall, a space to return to. Maybe nothing. Maybe I just left too long. Or maybe more likely my leaving made it easier for her to forget I'd ever been part of it. I thought about the bottle of Tylenol in my bag. I hadn't needed it after all. The headache was gone. In its place was something else. I couldn't name it yet, but it was quiet, heavy, familiar. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I didn't text anyone. I just closed my eyes and tried to remember the last time I felt at home here. It was probably before the carpet changed. Before Ashley's face became a locked door. Before I realized that even silence can be territorial. I woke up before anyone else. The house was still. No coffee brewing, no footsteps, no hum of conversation. Just that thin, morning silence I'd grown up with, the kind that always felt a little too careful, like everyone was waiting for something to crack. I slipped out of bed without making a sound. My coat had slid to the floor. I picked it up, folded it over my arm, and padded down the stairs barefoot. The kitchen light was already on. My mother stood at the sink, staring into the yard like it might answer a question she hadn't asked out loud. She didn't turn when I entered. "There's leftover cake," she said. "I'll wrap some for you to take." I nodded. "Thanks." I poured a glass of water and leaned against the counter. She looked tired. Older than I remembered. Maybe I looked the same to her. Maybe that's why she never really looked at me. She dried her hands on a towel, then reached for a plate. Ashley's worked really hard to make that room hers, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I'm glad you didn't take it personally. I didn't answer. I was thinking about the summer I gave Ashley that desk, the same one she now used for her content planner and laptop. She'd failed a semester, was spiraling, crying every night about feeling lost. I packed up my apartment in Atlanta, put my job on hold, and moved home for 6 weeks. Mom had shingles, Dad was already 2 years gone, and Ashley was flailing. I did the grocery runs. I called her advisor. I sat on the floor while she threw things across the room and said she hated everyone. I didn't say much. I just stayed. When things stabilized, I left again. Quietly, the way I always did. No one threw a party. No one called to ask if I made it back okay. That desk had been my only real goodbye. I sipped my water and let the memory pass like a train I didn't need to catch. She's doing better now, Mom said. The routines help. The space helps. I nodded again. She's lucky, I said. Mom didn't reply, just kept slicing the leftover cake, one perfect piece after another. After breakfast, I took a walk around the block. My old hoodie still smelled like Ashley's perfume. I didn't take it off. The air was thin and gray, the way November always is in this town. On the corner, I passed the bus stop where I used to wait every morning at 6:40. I'd wear layers under my uniform and keep my hands in my pockets. It was the same bench where I once gave Ashley my gloves when hers tore. She was crying that day, too. Cold fingers, no friends, middle school cruelty. I'd told her, wear mine. I'll say I lost them. I'd gotten detention for not following dress code. She didn't get in trouble. She didn't even say thank you. I stopped walking when I reached the edge of the park. There was a tree with initials carved into it. Mine, Ashley's. A summer memory. Lemonade, mosquito bites, promises we thought meant something. I touched the bark. The carving was still there, faded but holding on. I stood there until my toes went numb. When I came back to the house, Ashley was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a smoothie and a laptop open to what looked like a live stream. Hey, she said, without looking up. You headed back already? Soon, I said. Wanted to say bye. Cool. She tapped something on the keyboard, then added, Thanks for not making it weird last night. I paused at the doorway. You mean when you said I didn't deserve my old room? She laughed. Oh my God, don't be dramatic. It's not even about you. I nodded slowly. Right, nothing ever is. She looked up at that. Just for a second. But it was enough. I turned away. My bag was still by the stairs. I picked it up, zipped the top, and swung it over my shoulder. I didn't say goodbye to Mom. I figured she'd hear the door close. On the train ride back, I kept the hoodie on. My phone buzzed twice. Work. A friend. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened notes and typed one line. She never said thank you for the gloves. It sounded petty, but it wasn't about the gloves. It was about everything small I'd ever given that became invisible the moment it left my hands. About how love in this family was never returned, just expected. Like air. Like silence. Like me. I closed the app and looked out the window. The trees blurred past, orange and brown and bare. I'd given so much over the years. Money, time, space, rooms. I just hadn't realized I'd given away the right to come back. 3 days after I got back, I went to drop off a donation box at a used bookstore near my apartment. I hadn't planned to go in, but the wind was biting, and I figured I'd step inside, warm up a little, maybe browse the dollar rack. I wandered to the back, toward the staff picks. That's when I saw it. A paperback with a familiar photo on the cover. Familiar not in a vague déjà vu kind of way. Familiar because it was mine. The image was slightly edited, softened, filtered, but unmistakable. It was a picture of my old bedroom, my actual bedroom, before the beige walls, before the diffuser and the yoga mat. I stood there frozen, eyes locked on the spine. The author's name was printed in pale serif font, Ashley J. Myers. I pulled the book off the shelf, flipped it open. The dedication read, To the ones who survive silently, you taught me how to speak. I turned the pages, skimmed a paragraph, then another, and then I stopped, because the story wasn't fiction. Not really. The main character was named Anna, but the childhood memories were mine, line for line, word for word. The broken arm in second grade, The middle school poem that won state. The walk home after Mom forgot to pick me up, and I sat on the school steps for 2 hours. Even the scar behind the ear, shaped like a comma, was in there. My hands shook. I sat down in the corner of the store with the book in my lap and kept reading. Chapter after chapter blurred into a sick familiarity. My journals. She had taken my journals. At some point, probably during one of those summers when I was gone and she still lived at home, she must have found them, read them, used them. I flipped to the acknowledgments. My name wasn't there. Not once. But our mother was. In capital letters. Thank you to my mother, who reminded me that no matter how dark things get, stories always find their way home. I felt my face flush. I didn't even remember walking to the register. The cashier looked up, smiling. Great pick. That one's been selling fast. I paid cash, walked home with the book in my coat, pressed tight against my ribs like it might leak if I let it breathe. At home, I pulled the shoebox from the top shelf of my closet, the one that still held my last notebook, the red one with a frayed elastic strap. I opened it. The pages were still there, and then I saw it. The missing one, torn out cleanly. The page with the story about the night I almost left for good. It was in the book, word for word. Changed just enough to give her deniability. But I knew. It was mine. My story. My words. My pain. I sat on the floor for a long time. The radiator hissed. Outside, a car honked too long. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just sat there with the book open in one hand and the notebook in the other. I hadn't written in years. Not since I left home for good. But now, reading her voice, wearing my memories like a borrowed coat, I felt something old and sharp crawl back up my throat. Later that night, I checked her social media. She was doing readings now, bookstores, college campuses. Sharing stories that matter, she'd written in one caption, under a photo of herself holding a mic, eyes closed, bathed in soft light. The caption continued, "Not everyone has the courage to say it out loud, but some of us must." I closed the app, plugged my phone in, then unplugged it again. I printed out a copy of the copyright form, then opened a new document on my laptop and began to type, "Not for her, not for revenge," just to prove to myself I still could. The next morning, I sent an email to the publisher. I didn't accuse. I didn't threaten. I simply asked whether Ashley J. Myers had submitted any materials under oath, affirming that the work was entirely original. I attached screenshots of my old notebook, timestamps, metadata. No emotion, just evidence. Later that afternoon, I received a reply from someone in legal. Short, terse. "We take these claims seriously. Our team will investigate and follow up." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I just leaned back in my chair, closed the book still sitting on my desk, and whispered, not to anyone in particular, "You really thought I wouldn't notice?" The response from the publisher came 5 days later. It wasn't long, just a few lines in a sterile font. Their legal team had reviewed the materials. Substantial textual overlap identified. Pending internal investigation, all promotional activity related to the title will be paused effective immediately. No apology, no admission, just the corporate equivalent of stunned silence. I stared at the email for a long time, then I forwarded it to myself. Twice, just to be sure it was real. The next day, the bookstore near my apartment pulled the display. I walked past it after work, where my bedroom used to sit in paperback form, and found only an empty wooden stand and a sign that read, "Temporarily out of stock." It wasn't, of course. They still had copies. They just weren't selling them anymore. That same night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Ashley. Her voice started calm, too calm, the way people sound when they've rehearsed something 5 times in the mirror. "Hey, I heard you did something? To the book?" There was a pause, a click in her throat. "Look, if you had concerns, you could have just come to me. We're family. You didn't have to go behind my back and make it public. I didn't even use your name." Another pause, then quieter like a hiss. "You don't own pain. Everyone has a right to tell their story." I didn't call her back. I didn't text. I just saved the voicemail, labeled it, archived it. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. What I felt was older than anger. Heavier. Like the ache that settles into your bones in cold weather. A kind of remembering. A few days later, Mom called. This time I picked up. "What is going on between you two?" she said, skipping the greeting. "Ashley's devastated. She says you're threatening her career." I sat on the couch, staring at the stain on my rug from the time I dropped a cup of tea during a panic attack. "Did she tell you where she got the stories?" I asked. "She said they were fictionalized." "Are they?" Silence. Then, "Look, I don't know what's true anymore. You girls have always had your issues, but this feels cruel." I almost laughed. "Cruel is publishing someone else's trauma and signing your name to it." "You're overreacting," she said. "Ashley's book has helped people. She's being invited to panels, conferences. She's finally found her voice. And now it's all falling apart because you can't let go of the past." I closed my eyes. It's not the past if she's still profiting from it. Mom sighed hard through her nose. "You're doing this out of spite. Admit it. You're jealous she got there first." I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't even wait for her to finish. Just pressed the red button and let the silence settle again. That night, I gathered every old notebook, every saved message, every email I'd ever written that contained so much as a sentence of memory. I sorted them, scanned them, created backups. I labeled a folder. Source Archive. It wasn't revenge. It was insurance. 2 days later, I received an email from a literary blogger. They'd caught wind of the investigation. Wanted a quote. "Sources suggest you've raised a claim against Ashley J. Myers regarding authorship of her book. Would you care to comment?" I wrote one sentence. "I only ask for the credit of surviving what she turned into art." I didn't hear from them again. But the blog post went up the next morning. It was diplomatic, non-accusatory. But it listed the facts, the timeline, the text samples, side by side, my words, her paragraphs. The similarities were impossible to ignore. That same afternoon, Ashley's publisher released a statement. "Due to unresolved concerns regarding the origin of select passages, we are temporarily suspending distribution of The Silent Sister. We remain committed to upholding the integrity of authorship." I read the statement 3 times. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post anything. I didn't text anyone. I just made tea, sat by the window, and watched the leaves outside fall one by one. At 8:02 p.m., Ashley texted. One sentence. "Are you happy now?" I stared at it, typed nothing. Then I opened my old journal, the red one, with the torn elastic, and wrote for the first time in years. Not about her, not about the book. Just about the park near my apartment, and how the light hits the bench around 4:15 when no one's looking. When I finished, I closed it, tied it shut with a rubber band. Then I deleted her text, not because I was angry, because I was finally done carrying a silence that didn't belong to me. The text messages came in waves. First from Ashley, accusatory, vague, as if still trying to rewrite the story mid-collapse. Then from people I hadn't heard from in years. A cousin in Ohio, a family friend who once called me the quiet one, like it was a diagnosis. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. You two always had your own ways of seeing things. She's hurting, you know. No one asked if I was. On Wednesday night, Mom showed up at my apartment, no warning. Just the familiar knock. 3 short, 1 long. The same rhythm from when I was little and scared of thunderstorms. I opened the door, saw her face, and didn't say anything. She walked past me like she still lived here, Saturday down on the couch, clutched her purse like it might run away. "We need to talk," she said. I stayed standing. She looked older than last week, more tired. "Ashley's not eating, she's barely sleeping." The publisher dropped her completely. Her eyes darted to mine. She could lose everything. I crossed my arms. "Then she shouldn't have taken everything." She shook her head. "It wasn't like that. She didn't mean to hurt you. She just borrowed." I almost laughed. Borrowed implies return. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, not angry, pleading. "You've always been the one who keeps things calm, who forgives. That's who you are." I bit my tongue so hard it tasted like pennies. That's who you are. Like forgiveness was furniture I was born carrying. "You don't get to decide who I am," I said. "Not anymore." She blinked. "This family is falling apart." "No," I said. "It's just being seen for what it already was." Silence stretched between us. I watched her reach into her purse, pull out a folded envelope. She set it on the table. "It's a letter from your father. I found it last month in the attic. It was addressed to you." I didn't move. She stood up slowly. "Whatever you think this family owes you, it's not worth burning the whole house down." I didn't answer. She left without another word. The door clicked behind her. I sat staring at the envelope for what felt like an hour. Then I opened it. My father's handwriting slanted, familiar, a little shaky. He'd written it during his last winter, the year he stayed mostly in bed. It wasn't long, just a page and a half. He wrote about the treehouse he never finished building for me, how he still felt guilty, how he knew I always gave more than I got. I see you, he wrote. Even if your mother never says it out loud, even if Ashley takes up all the air in the room, I see you. My throat tightened. He signed it with his full name, like it was official, like it mattered. I folded the letter and slid it into my journal. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying the visit. The look in Mom's eyes, like I'd broken something sacred, like I was the problem. The next morning, Ashley posted a story on Instagram. A blurry photo of a window captioned, "Even silence can be violence." I didn't reply, but I screenshotted it. A week later, I received a letter from her lawyer. Not a lawsuit, just an ask. Mediation. An attempt to resolve the matter, privately, constructively, without further reputational damage. I read the letter once, twice, then I sent it to mine. My attorney, a woman with kind eyes and no tolerance for gaslighting, asked, "What do you want?" The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I wasn't sure. But then the answer came, steady and small. I want her to admit it wasn't hers. Publicly? No, I said. Just to me, she nodded. We can ask for that. The date for mediation was set. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want more opinions. I wanted clarity, or closure, or something that resembled truth. The night before, I sat on the floor with my notebooks all around me, pages yellowed with time, ink smudged from years of holding on too tight. I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Not for confrontation, but for the echo of my own voice, unfiltered. I went to bed with the window cracked open, letting the cold slip in. Not to punish myself, just to feel awake. Just to feel real. The mediation took place in a rented office suite with beige walls and a window that didn't open. There was bottled water on the table, a tray of granola bars no one touched, and a clock that ticked too loudly. Ashley arrived 7 minutes late, wearing a gray blazer over a hoodie. She didn't look at me when she walked in, just sat down across the table, crossed her legs, and pulled out a pen. Her lawyer sat beside her, young and visibly nervous. Mine nodded politely. I kept my hands folded in my lap. The mediator began with a rehearsed tone, talking about intention, resolution, and mutual respect. I didn't hear most of it. I was watching Ashley. Her eyes flicked to me once, just once, then dropped back to her legal pad. "We're here today," the mediator said, "to discuss concerns over authorship, usage of personal materials, and the possibility of acknowledgement." Ashley's lawyer spoke first. Something about misunderstanding, creative interpretation, the blurred line between inspiration and infringement. Then mine responded. Calm, measured, she mentioned the journals, the passages, the dates, the digital footprints, the emails, the context. Ashley shifted in her chair. For a moment, her knee bounced, then stopped. Finally, the mediator turned to me. "Would you like to speak?" I nodded. Looked at Ashley. "I don't want an apology," I said. "I don't want money. I'm not here to ruin your career. I'm here because I want to hear you say it. That you used my words. That the story people praised you for wasn't yours." Ashley's lips pressed into a line. Her lawyer whispered something to her, too low to catch. She didn't respond. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. Then she looked up. Her face was tight, like she was chewing glass. "Fine," she said. "I used your journals. I shouldn't have. I thought if I made it beautiful, it would be okay. That it would matter more." Her voice caught. "I didn't think anyone would care who it came from." The room went very still. I didn't blink. "Thank you," I said. The mediator looked relieved. Ashley didn't. She leaned back in her chair and turned her face toward the window that didn't open. "Do you want me to announce it?" she asked. "Tell people the book isn't mine?" "No," I said. "That's yours to live with now." Her eyes widened just slightly. Not in gratitude, in confusion. "Then why?" "Because I needed to know you knew," I said. "That's all." We ended the session early. No agreements to sign, no statements, just 2 signatures acknowledging we'd attended. As I gathered my coat, Ashley stood up too. She hesitated at the door. "I really didn't think you'd do it," she said. I tilted my head. "I know." Outside, the air was brittle and blue. I walked 2 blocks before I let myself feel anything. Not anger, not vindication, just a quiet, steady kind of ache. Like something heavy had been lifted, but the bruise it left behind would take time to fade. That evening, I made dinner for myself, chopped vegetables slowly, stirred sauce without rushing. I didn't check my phone, didn't open my laptop. I just let the quiet settle in the apartment like an old friend. At 9:12 p.m., an email came in. From the publisher, they'd reviewed the mediation report and would be reinstating the investigation indefinitely. The book would remain pulled, rights suspended. A sentence near the bottom: "Your integrity in this matter is noted and appreciated." I closed the email. I didn't forward it to anyone. I didn't screenshot it. I just marked it as read and moved on. Before bed, I opened the red journal, wrote 1 line. "I didn't win. I just didn't lose myself this time." Then I tucked it under my pillow, turned out the light, and slept with both windows open. Not because I needed the cold, but because for the first time in years I could breathe. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Ashley. Not directly, but I saw the quiet unraveling. Her book disappeared from shelves, not just pulled, but gone. Her website went into maintenance mode. A panel she'd been scheduled to speak at posted a subtle update: "Program subject to change." I didn't gloat. There was nothing satisfying about watching someone lose something they stole. It didn't feel like justice. It felt like silence, finally landing in the right room. One afternoon, I came home to a package on my doorstep. No return address, no note, just a box sealed with care. I brought it inside, opened it on the kitchen floor. Inside, my journals. All of them. Even the red one I still kept with me. She must have copied the missing pages and returned the originals. Some were weathered, the corners bent. A few had sticky notes attached with what looked like page numbers. I sat there for a long time, just breathing, just staring at the weight of my own memory. She hadn't apologized, but this was the closest she'd ever come to admitting she'd taken too much. I packed the journals back into the box and carried them to my closet. Placed them gently on the highest shelf, not hidden, just above reach. That night, I visited the park near my apartment. It was late past 10. Empty except for a man walking his dog and the occasional gust of wind that made the leaves skitter across the pavement. I sat on the bench beneath the lamp, the same bench I'd written about in my last entry. The light flickered, then steadied. I pulled out a notebook, not one of the old ones, a new one, crisp pages. No name, I wrote slowly, like relearning how to speak. Just images. The way my father's signature curved like it was falling. The smell of cinnamon on my mother's coat. The way Ashley once held my hand after a nightmare when we were both too young to lie to each other. I stayed until my fingers went numb. Then I walked home. Days passed, then weeks. The house back home felt farther and farther away, not in distance, but in pull. No one called. No one sent messages. But in the quiet, I started to remember who I was when no one was watching. I wrote more. Nothing for show, nothing to prove, just to feel the ground under my voice again. One morning, I submitted a short piece to a small literary journal. Not about the book, not about Ashley. Just about a room and the echo it held. It was accepted, published a month later. I didn't share the link. I just printed it out and taped it to my fridge. A reminder. A marker. One evening, as I was washing dishes, the phone rang. The house line, a number I recognized. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. "It's me," my mother said. I dried my hands, leaned against the counter. "Hi." Silence. Then, "I read your piece, the one about the room." I didn't respond. It was beautiful. Her voice was soft, uncertain. It felt true. I closed my eyes, waited. She added, "You always were the one who noticed things." I smiled faintly, not because it healed anything, but because for once she didn't look away from the wound. "Thank you," I said. She didn't stay on the line long. Just a few minutes, enough to feel the gap without trying to fill it. When she hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the fridge. The printed story. The words no one tried to take. I realized I no longer needed to be heard by everyone. I just needed to not disappear inside myself. That night, I walked into my bedroom and looked at the window. The curtains moved slightly in the breeze. I thought about the room back home, the one with beige walls and a diffuser, how much of me had been scrubbed out of it. But I also thought about the journals in my closet, the voice I'd found again, the bench in the park, the blank pages I wasn't afraid of anymore. I turned off the light and lay down, not as a guest in someone else's story, but in mine. Spring came late that year. The trees outside my apartment stayed bare into April, and every morning felt like it couldn't decide between rain or sun. I liked it that way. I liked the indecision. It felt honest. I was writing more little things, mostly. Observations. Small essays. A memory of how my father used to tap the steering wheel when he drove. A detail about the hallway light back home, how it flickered at the baseboard like it was blinking through something. I never mentioned Ashley's name. Not once. I'd said what I needed to say in silence. And sometimes silence, when held long enough, speaks louder than anything else. One morning, a letter arrived in the mail, handwritten, no return address. I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. Ashley. It was brief. No apology, no explanation, just one sentence. The room's empty now if you ever want it. I stared at it for a long time, the way someone might look at a key that doesn't belong to any lock they use anymore. I folded the letter and slid it into the back of my drawer, not out of sentiment, just to keep record. 2 weeks later, I went back, not to stay, not for the room, just to see it one last time. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I arrived around noon on a Sunday. The house looked the same. Beige siding, overgrown lawn, the wind chime that always rang wrong. Mom opened the door. She didn't act surprised. Maybe she wasn't. "It's good to see you," she said. "You look steady," I smiled. "I am." Ashley wasn't home. She'd moved out a few days earlier, Mom said. Left for a fellowship in Vermont. "She's trying to write something new," Mom added. "From scratch this time." I didn't comment, just followed her up the stairs. The door to the room was open, the bed stripped, desk bare, walls blank. Even the diffuser was gone. The emptiness felt louder than I expected, but not haunting, just vacant, like someone had finally stopped pretending it belonged to them. I stepped inside. Ran my fingers along the window frame. The paint had chipped slightly. The fairy lights left tiny pin-sized holes along the top edge of the wall. I could still smell traces of lavender. I sat on the edge of the bed frame, just for a moment, just to remember what it felt like. Then I stood up, walked over to the closet, and opened it. Empty. Except for one thing. Tucked in the back corner was a shoebox. My old one. Red lid, torn label. I pulled it out gently, sat on the floor, and opened it. Inside were scraps. A dried rose from high school graduation, a theater ticket stub, a photo of me and Ashley, age 11 and 8, sitting on the porch with ice cream dripping down our hands. We looked happy. Or maybe just unaware. I didn't take anything from the box. I didn't need souvenirs. I closed the lid, placed it back in the closet, and stood. Before I left, I took one last look at the room. Not to grieve it, not to claim it. Just to acknowledge it for what it was mine once, and no longer. Downstairs, Mom was waiting by the door. She looked like she wanted to say something. Then changed her mind. I opened it for her. "Thanks for letting me look," I said. She touched my shoulder, briefly, lightly. "You always belonged more than you knew." I didn't respond. I stepped out onto the porch and felt the wind press into my coat. I walked to my car slowly, not out of reluctance, but ritual. When I started the engine, I didn't look back. The house didn't deserve a final glance. It had already taken enough. On the drive home, I thought about what Ashley had written, "The room's empty now if you ever want it." But what I wanted was never just the room. It was never the furniture or the desk or the bedspread I used to cry into. What I wanted was recognition, a quiet seat at the table, the safety of being believed. And now, I realized, I didn't need her to give me that anymore. I'd built it elsewhere, in silence. In stories, in places where my voice didn't echo, it landed. When I got home, I took off my shoes and sat on the floor of my living room. The late afternoon light filtered through the blinds. I reached for my journal, opened to a blank page, and wrote a single sentence. I visited the grave of something I no longer mourn. Then I closed it, stood up, and made tea. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean, clear, like something had been lifted from my chest, not forcefully, not dramatically, just gently undone. Later that night, I stood by my window, looking out at the street. The wind had picked up again. Leaves blew in a slow spiral near the sidewalk. Someone walked by with a dog, and for a second I thought I recognized them. But it didn't matter. They didn't see me, and I didn't need them to. I was here, still, steady. And, for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to earn my place. I had simply taken it quietly, fully, on my own terms.